64 points. Matthews kicked 6, Brereton, Knights and Buckenara 3 each, and for the losers 2 each to Kane, Bartlett, Rioli and Jess. Doug Bigelow and Geoff Leek were out at the MCG to see the Hawks, and they must be rolling along nicely, Douglas.
Rolling along very nicely, Tim, and those 10 goals you mentioned were preceded by 8 in the first quarter, so they kicked 18 out of 22 in 2 quarters, and it was excellent football. But their back line never wavered throughout. It was absolutely superb, I thought, led by Mew and Moore, ably supported by Ayres and Green and company. You could, E did a lot of good work back there also. It was a grand performance by Hawthorn, and as I saw from them last week, almost overall, because every player giving something, and that's what goes to make effective football. Richmond were disappointing. Big Lee wasn't. He was a good player for them. Peart did a good job on Knights. I thought Landy was a good goer for the Tigers too today, following his good form of last week, and Lee doing quite a good work in a good bit of work in the ruck, and it was brutal on a couple of occasions too. But Hawthorn got away to an excellent start today, and I suppose this is the difference between the sides. They had fellas on their forward line who could kick goals. Jess and Roach didn't do enough, but those guys on Hawthorn's forward line showing class. Knights kicked 3, but in that first term, Matthews was in devastating form. He kicked 5 goals for them, and let's have a look at some of the play of Matthews, who was going to be a headache for Richmond defence all day.
Straight through the centre goes E. Tries to find Wallace. He didn't need him. Didn't get him in to go with Dash. A beautiful pass on Matthews. Great football.
Robertson, head down, bottom up. That was Matthews again.
Well, the Tigers, after being 31 points down at the first change after that brilliant exhibition from Matthews with 5 goals from the 5 kicks, they had their chance. They bounced out in the second term, and before Hawthorn knew what was happening, they peppered the goals, but could only manage 5 behind. I think this may have been the difference, and from then on, their effort seemed to dwindle. But they'd clawed and they scratched their way. They really harassed the Hawks. They played them pretty tightly. They used quite a bit of vigour, and they outscored them 3 goals to 2 in that second term. But there's an old adage in football: when the going gets tough, the tough gets going. There's no tougher player than Terry Wallace, who had a marvellous game against Maurice Rioli in the centre, and he was one of the focal points and one of the motivators in that Hawthorn side.
It's the last term as Polkinghorne does some ruck work. McCarthy with a handheld handball. Wallace, 40 metres out, straight through. That's the answering goal by Hawthorn.
I suppose when you have a look at quality on a forward line, Judge is no harm as a footballer. I thought he did very well for them until leaving the ground injured in the last quarter. And along with Matthews, Brereton wasn't a bad player either. But Buckenara, who followed up with 7 goals on the interstate side with a pretty effective performance today. He was always a dangerous player, Buckenara, and his form very good for the Hawks.
Going to Richmond, and quickly on to Landy. Landy's placement of the kicks, except that one, has been brilliant. Polkinghorne gets in the way. Buckenara steals past the opponent, has a quick look and a shot for goal, and it's another one for the Hawks.
I'll pop into the Hawthorn rooms after the match just to inquire after Michael Tuck, and Tim's already mentioned what's happened there. But there was an air of confidence, but they're a bit worried that they've hit their peak a bit too far away from the finals, and this is Hawthorn's worry at the moment. But it seems to all of us watching on that the closer they get to the finals, the better they're playing. And they've got too many good players at the moment, if you can say that. But they're very lucky, the Hawks, the way they've been able to blend the youth with the age. But their backlines are very youthful, one apart from Kelvin Moore with Eade. But the surprises in the Hawthorn lineup this year with strength would be their centre half back, Chris Mew, and particularly Gary Ayres, who's been around the club for a few years but has never been in better form, and there's not a better Hawthorn player. I thought he was possibly their best player today. Ayres in the back pocket, the way he did things was wonderful to watch.
A long kick straight to full forward. Oh, beautiful judgment. Fine climbing mark from Ayres. Give it to me.
Well, he's been the rock in defence, Jeffrey, and I gather you've come up with an appropriate nickname there.
Well, he's harder to get over than Ayres rock. So
Right, I like it. Well, Biggs, was there anything good about Richmond's effort?
No, not a great deal. I'd be feeling very disappointed if I was Richmond's coach, because just today they're outclassed. I think Hawthorn on their form today could outclass anybody. But Lee did an excellent job, as I mentioned, and of course Peart, Landy, Jepp's coming along nicely. But consistency among their smaller players is something that is really lacking at the moment. But One exception in the Richmond lineup is Rioli. He wasn't consistent throughout today, but at times Rioli, as he always does, gave a polished performance.
From Green, on to Green in actual fact. Well, the hand pass came unstuck for one of the very few times today. Bartlett, a properly old pass. McCarthy, Rioli, oh, skill personified, fires in towards goal, and I think he deserved that one. The Tigers...
Hasn't been a good year for the Tigers, but he must be a real Brownlow chance. Well, the Hawks really rolling, as I said, 6 straight wins now, and as they've got rolling, some of their better players have really started to fire. Among those, Gary Buckenara, who shoved it up the Victorians, as they say, a couple of weeks ago in Perth with that terrific exhibition in the interstate match, and he's... Stop looking at me like that. He's playing fantastic football at the moment. Great converter for Hawthorn, and after the game he spoke to Peter Booth.
Well, Gary, a big win, the team really firing.
Yes, it was. It was a real good win for us. I know they've beaten us twice this year, and we took the game as a very important game for our lead up to the finals, playing on the MCG.
Have you ever seen so much understanding on the back line? Players like Ayres, Green, Eade, it's just like a closely knit family up there.
Well, those guys have been playing together for the last couple of years, and they've really got a good understanding between each other. And you know, I wouldn't reckon there was a back line in the league that has an understanding like them at the moment. They're playing fantastic football.
Gary Buckenara after Hawthorn's big win over Richmond.